Welcome to pattern making class. This is Annette Julie, and we are continuing on with our Mandarin collar draft. So here's your draft. It doesn't have the other side of the collar yet. It doesn't have any seam allowance. Here's the center back, here's the shoulder, and there's our center front. There's also no extension. This collar would meet at the center front, and this collar would meet at the center back. We could cut it out and put 1/4 inch seam allowance on it like this, and it be a collar that zips up the center back. A design that zips up to the center back, and then like the center back we could have hook and eyes or something. But we're going to make this a collar that opens up in the center front. We're going to cut this out and we're going to put it on some paper. I'm going to draft some interfacing and everything. So, let's get started. This is part 2 of Mandarin collar draft. Let's make sure we have nice blended lines, we can understand everything. And now we're going to put on our 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this is all over. This is that top edge. It's our curve around the style line at the center front there. And it's also on the neckline section. This is where it would sew to the neck. Blending everything. Blend a little bit more back here. So I'm going to show you a couple different variations. If I put a 1/2 inch center back seam allowance, this could mean now, like I was mentioning, a garment that could have a zipper up the center back. But if we take this collar and we put it on a fold, then that would eliminate the option for a center back zipper. Okay, now it's already got seam allowance everywhere. There's that one version. Well, let's grab another piece of paper. Let's draw a grain line. Crease this on the grain line. Now we've got a paper that if we copy off this collar without that 1/2 inch seam allowance, put that on the fold there, then we end up with a butterfly pattern piece. Okay, so that can be 2 different designs. Also too, if you were going to use this, you would want to put some notches here at the center back to show us that that is your center back. Okay, but we're going to put this one on the fold. We don't need any seam allowance at the center back. And this does not have an extension at our center front at this point. So we're going to take our piece of paper that I showed you. We have the piece underneath so to make this butterfly. And I'm going to take my pattern piece and I'm going to place this right up against the fold here. and I can weight or tape things down. I like to use some tape sometimes. It's my favorite thing, actually. You can put it on your hand, and if you pull it off, it is then use it on your pattern. It is much less likely to rip your pattern piece. So when I'm copying off something small like this, and I want it to be really nice and accurate, I might go grab a little bit of tape and add that little element to it. And now we're gonna, like I say, match the grain line to grain line for the collar. And I'm going to tape this down. We'll move it down a little bit. Here we go. I'm going to tape it down, and I'm going to trace it off. A little bit of tape all over. Let's go ahead and trace this off. Now right here is where I have that tape, so let me go ahead and lift that tape up and move it to another area I already copied. Here also is the tape up at the top. Move that. Okay, now what do we want to transfer? We're going to transfer that shoulder seam. And I believe we're ready to go ahead and lift up our pattern, our draft, and then we're going to bring in the notch for the shoulder. This over here, this is our center back, and here's our center front. Let's go ahead and connect that right there. And seam allowance is already in here because when you copied this, we had added it to our draft. You could have a draft without seam allowance and put the draft on put the seam allowance on your first copy. But this one I just added seam allowance and transferred it over that way. So since the seam allowance is already in here, you need to cross the corner to show yourself both seams have 1/4 of an inch. This shows you have a 1/4 inch all the way along here, and this notch shows you have a 1/4 inch all the way along there. Now, you don't need to notch both of those, but you do need to draw it in there. We will also do something at the center back. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw a grain line down here. And you can just continue it down because we're going to use this for some more of our pattern drafting. And this is going to be our Mandarin collar. Okay, and we haven't decided if this is a top or under collar at this point, or if you even want to bother making top and under collar. So for this demo, we're going to make this the same. We're going to have this Mandarin collar be the same. This is our top and under. Okay, so we're going to have to cut 2, and this is going to be of self fabric. But we're also going to have to cut another pattern piece as well, and that is cut 1 of interfacing, and we always write that in red. Here are some examples of interfacing. We put that inside the collar to add construction. This part where I can feel the bumps has the glue. So I would iron on this side and have your fabric underneath here. So we have our pattern. Mandarin collar, top and under, cut 2, which is our self fabric, whatever fabric you want, and cut 1 interfacing. Let's go ahead and cut this pattern piece out. And we're going to put 1 more notch, and that's going to be at the center back. And like I was saying, you don't want to notch out the ones at the center front. You can draw them in there, but don't use your scissors or notcher and cut it out. It just weakens a 1/4 inch seam. The stitchers in the factories will know it's sewn with a 1/4 inch. So now, since this collar is going to be the same top and under, you can just choose to do 1 notch at that center back. Okay, and then the next demo I'll show you how to make them different. And like I said, over here it includes the seam allowance for both sides. But if that freaks you out and you don't know, you can't tell, you can draw a little bit in there just to make yourself feel better. You can draw a couple little dotted lines. But we also don't have to. That can waste our time as pattern makers. That tells us it's all in there. So there's that draft. And here's the butterfly pattern. And this is the end of our Mandarin collar demonstration. This is Annette Julie. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. Au revoir.